So let's now start the day with our first topic and our first speaker. So let me start with our first speaker. He earned his bachelor's degree in electronics and communications engineering at the former Mindanao Polytechnic State College, now USTP, in 2007. He also garnered his Latin honor cum laude with his master's studies in electronics and communication engineering with specialization in control systems at Mapua University in 2009. He has spent more than 10 years in the teaching arena and has been serving as a department chairperson for 8 years. He is a CDIO master trainer and a design thinking facilitator. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Engineer Lloyd John Estampa. Sir?
Hello, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Am I audible po, Ma'am Amarita?
Yes po, sir. Loud and clear.
So, hello, everyone. My name is Lloyd, and I will be your speaker for today. Hey, good morning. Another Manic Monday, so we need to learn something new again. As what they say, the danger for faculty to assume that you already know everything, that's very dangerous. So as of the moment, let's try to empty our cup first. Kasi sabi nila, if you will not empty your cup, you will not learn something new. So maybe I am asking everyone for the next few minutes or an hour and a half, let's try to empty our cup first and let's try to learn something new. So I will be discussing today, titled Ways of Providing Feedback and Evaluating Students' Participation in Online Discussion. Okay, so this will be a webinar for the next 2 hours, but I will not just be the one who will be discussing to you some theories, some practices about this topic. I will be also accompanied with Engineer Eileen Amora after my discussion. So please bear with me and come on, let's learn. So for a start, this will be the outline of my presentation. First, I will be discussing what is feedback and its importance. Feedback and its importance. Next, what are the different types of feedback? What are the different types of feedback? Next, the modes of delivery for giving feedback. So, if may types pala yung feedback, meron din pala siyang mga modes of delivery. So, later we will know what are these. Maybe alam nyo na, so, but maybe di nyo pa alam. So exciting to know, di ba? Next, last but not the least, some helpful tips in providing good feedback. Okay, so let's start. Let's start with feedback and its importance. So, okay, this is a very important slide, considering that we always hear the word assessment, then we always hear the word feedback. Sometimes we interchange them, okay? Sometimes we thought what we are doing as assessment. Sometimes we thought that what we are doing is feedback. So, which is which? Can we interchange the terms or not? To test that, let's see their definitions. So, assessment is the process of judging or deciding the amount, value, quality, or importance of something. However, feedback, on the other hand, is information given on the amount, value, quality, or importance of the thing being judged or measured. So, I've highlighted some keywords there. Assessment is the process, and feedback is the information given. So, if you sometimes it's safe to say that assessment and feedback can be interchanged. But if you literally describe to differentiate them, you are assessing is the process itself. After you have assessed something, the action of channeling that what was being assessed, that's called feedback. So technically, you cannot feedback if you haven't assessed something. And if ever you have assessed something, you need to feedback that to the one concerned. And for our part, we need to feedback that to the students, our very, very important stakeholders. Okay? Diba? Let us always put that in mind. A teacher's value can only be assessed with how you question his or her students. Yung students mismo yung magsasabi talaga kung magaling ba yan magturo or hindi. So, pressure on our part. So, we always have to adjust for our students because our students is also our part of our identity. Okay, so assessment, feedback. Assessment is the process and feedback is the action of channeling what was being assessed. Okay, proceeding. So, in terms of importance, there are several articles by Bellon and York. They said that feedback is an essential part of effective learning, and it gives them clear guidance on how to improve. For York, he said that feedback can improve a student's confidence, self-awareness, and enthusiasm. Yun, very, very sensitive na part. So, ibig siguro sabihin, if in case na, if mali yung pag-feedback ko, posibleng matarget yung confidence ng student to learn from me, yung self-awareness niya, baka maging emo na siya. Tapos, hindi na siya ma-motivate. Tapos, yung enthusiasm niya. So, the feedback itself, the feedback into students, we instructors, we teachers, we have to really also improve ourselves to master the skills in using feedback for the students. Because, as what York said, it can affect the students' confidence, the self-awareness, and enthusiasm. Okay? So, yun po. So, also, a very important consideration. Do you remember the very famous magic triangle? Okay, we have this term triangulation. Okay, I have that. So, as an effective teacher, as an effective instructor, you can only say, you can only justify that you are doing things right if you are always performing religiously what is called triangulation. And what needs to be triangulated? Triangle, 1, 2, 3. 3 sides, 3 points to consider. And we, as we know, those are the learning outcomes, which must be taught effectively through learning activities. Then, which must be measured accurately through assessment methods, which must be referred and checked back through the learning outcomes. So, it's a continuous process po. It's not a one-shot deal. Again, it's not a one-shot deal. Once we set the learning outcomes, di ba, learning outcomes is ano ba yung ina-expect ng mga natin para sa ating mga students. Okay, so gusto kong maging critical thinker siya. Gusto kong maging innovative thinker siya. Gusto kong to develop my student with empathy. Okay, good, good. You have identified the first step. Now, the challenge is, what would be the learning activities? So we make sure to design learning activities, several learning activities for the students to get, to develop, and to improve these learning outcomes along the way. Okay? So, outcomes triggered by the learning activities. And now, the last part, even though it's the last part, it's also a very important part, the assessment methods. You will now assess whether the learning outcomes have been developed by the students, and how about their competencies? We have to grade them based on their levels. Is it does it needs improvement? Is it fair? Is it very satisfactory? Or is it excellent? Of course, the student deserves an answer for that. So we need to assess it to them. And of course, since it's a triangle, it's also a learning mechanism for us instructor. Maybe you set these learning outcomes, then you set the learning activities, you have assessed. But eventually, after your assessment, na-realize mo, parang kulang, parang mas masyadong weak pala yung mga outcomes na ginawa ko. Yung if I will use the words of Dr. Amphi Dinagsao, our director in CiTL, once you set learning outcomes, sabi niya, you have to make sure na in Bloom's taxonomy, di ba triangle din yun, you have to use the higher order thinking skills. Di ba? Ano yung higher order thinking skills? Nag-start yan ng analysis, evaluation, and creation. Hindi lang puro yung remembering, understanding, tsaka applying. So, if we want our students to be competent enough, really challenge them to give their best and maximize their thinking potential, their professional potential, we should always set that our learning outcomes should be higher order thinking skills related. Okay? So, yan po yung connection ni So dito connected si feedback, di ba? As I have presented earlier, feedback is always associated with the assessment methods. So, before finishing this first part of my presentation, I'll give you a question to ponder. Kaya, if my question, dapat may answer. But I will not challenge everyone to, you can answer to yourself about this. Or maybe you can write it in the comment section to share something about the question. So here's the question. Have I always religiously followed triangulation in teaching my students? Okay, I have defined there below. Triangulation means constructive alignment of learning outcomes, learning activities, and assessment methods. Okay, I will give you a few moments to reflect on the question. Am I doing it always? When was the last time na ginawa ko talaga yung triangulation? Doon lang ba nung pinasubmit na ng accreditor? No, joke, no. It was maybe, you know the answer. When was the last time? Okay. So that's the question for this part. The importance here is if we want our students to be professional, if we want our students to, if we want to be transparent for our outcomes to be developed by the students, if we want to be transparent also in telling them what are their level of competencies, we provide them rubrics and we give good feedbacks to them. All in all, we follow a standard process called triangulation. Again, we always make sure that there is constructive alignment of the learning outcomes, learning activities, and assessment methods. Okay, yun po. So, this is the progress of the presentation. Tapos na po tayo sa feedback and its importance. Now, we proceed to the next part, the different types of feedback. Okay, the different types of feedback. I think it's safe to assume that most of you is alam na siguro to, but I think we just need to revisit it to freshen up our minds. Okay, so these are the several different types of feedback. First, we have the informal feedback, the formal feedback, the self-feedback, the peer feedback, the constructive feedback, the formative feedback, and the summative feedback. In terms po sa icons na yan, I just personally designed it because because for me personally, I see feedback as when it is materialized, it's like gears, like it's how you turn the gear. So I was inspired with these gears, and that's why I created those icons. Sana po maganda sa mga mata nyo. So okay, next, we need to define them. So informal and formal feedback. So here's the definition. Informal feedback can occur at any time, as it is something that emerges spontaneously in the moment or during action. So parang instant lang, informal lang, parang walang schedule na involved from the teacher or from the students. However, the formal feedback is planned and systematically scheduled into the process. Okay, so ito usually associated with assessment tasks, formal feedback includes the likes of marking criteria, competencies, or achievement of standards and is recorded as evidence. So, yung mga ginagawa natin na merong rubrics, magsasubmit na yung mga students, tapos they can reflect on themselves, they can grade themselves. There are black and white documents, papers, there's a matrix, they answer some documents to be part of evidence na pwedeng i-include nila sa kanilang portfolio. Those are called formal feedback. Okay, so most of the time, if there are assessment instruments or criteria, it's called formal feedback. And technically, if it is planned, like if you're a teacher and then you said that, okay, after 2 weeks, I will be assessing your progress report. So you can use the rubrics I have uploaded earlier in our group in Edmodo or in Schoology. It depends, especially if you're using blended learning. Next, the self-feedback and the peer feedback. Okay, so the student alone and with his or her peers. Self-feedback helps students practice autonomy, independence, goal setting, and self-reflection. The student then can share it with the instructor. So I have read several researches, and it says that the best form of feedback pala is the self-feedback. Yung estudyante mismo yung mag-a-assess sa sarili niya. Of course, with the concept of integrity and honesty. Di ba? Kasi if self-feedback, like if alam ng student na talagang weak siya sa grammar, tapos magsi-self-feedback siya na excellent siya sa grammar, then that's actually it's fooling herself or himself. But with use of honesty and integrity, the self-feedback is the most important feedback. The student assessing himself or herself. Okay, so as instructors, it's very good if we give our students also an avenue for them to do self-feedback, like give them journals, self-reflections, or essays for themselves. Okay, next, the peer feedback. Okay. Peer feedback provides an atmosphere of belongingness and professionalism. With basic instruction and ongoing support from the instructor, students can learn to give quality feedback and develops more confidence. So, for example, if you have this online group with the students, maybe you can post a topic for them to discuss. They can discuss with themselves in a forum part or in fora. They can share their thoughts. But of course, since alam naman natin, usually some students are very vigilant, very enthusiastic. So if you create a forum or fora for them to discuss, make sure to put some rules there, like wag masyadong bash-bash, respect what was being said by what was being feedback by your classmates to you. Walang like personal grudge, walang yung malice. It's just part of helping each other to learn together. And if you let the students feel na he or she is part of a group of learners, then it gives him or her a sense of belongingness. As what they said, no man is an island. You cannot live alone. You need your classmates. Okay. Next, the constructive feedback. So the constructive feedback is technically as a more technical term. So we have several: the negative feedback, the positive feedback, the negative feed forward, and the positive feed forward. So it's called negative feedback if it's correcting what needs to be what wasn't successful and shouldn't be repeated in the past. The negative feed forward is the opposite. Corrective comments about future performance. For positive feedback, it's affirming comments like what are the behaviors that was successful and should be continued by the students. For positive feed forward naman is the same pa rin, pero para sa future. So they are grouped. The negative feedback and positive feedback is assessing the students, the goods and the needs to be improved in the past. Okay? So like what was being submitted. So negative feed forward saka positive feed forward is for anticipating something. Like for example, you're coaching the students, what you're doing when you say that wag mo tong gawin para especially yung margins mo, paki-adjust muna, tapos check mo palagi yung mga topic sentence mo. Or for example, try to maximize you have this asset of you're very good in illustrating your ideas. So maybe you can maximize that thing. So it's called feed forward. So all of these four are part of the thing called constructive feedback. Okay. Next, the formative and the summative feedback. We always hear this term. Ano bang klaseng feedback na ginagawa mo? Formative ba yan or summative? Okay, so based on Galen at 2010, he said that formative feedback helps students to improve and prevent them from making the same mistakes again. This, okay, again, Formative feedback should be done several times because you are doing formative feedback. What is the deliverables from the instructor? There should be a monitor of progress. Kasi formative feedback should be done several times because you can only see the progress if you've done several times the action you're doing to the students. For the summative feedback is to evaluate student learning at the end. So yun yung keyword. Several times yung formative, yung summative naman is at the end of a specific instructional period. Outputs or deliverables are compared against some established standard or benchmark. Itong tinatawag na standard or benchmark is usually what we call rubrics. Those matrix of description of level of competencies which we usually give the students before asking them like, okay, you project-based learning, or they have to submit a portfolio or a document, a set of documents, problem sets, give it in the last, during sa midterm or sa finals. Okay, so that's what you call summative feedback, usually at the end part. Formative is periodically, like every 2 weeks or every week, every 3 days or every 3 weeks, but this should be done several times. At least yung summative is pwedeng one shot lang. Okay? So, okay, just an analogy po. Kaya kasi if may magtatanong sa atin in layman's term, how to really differentiate yung formative feedback and summative feedback. So, it's just an analogy. When the chef, yung nagluluto, taste the food, it is formative feedback. Okay? Then, when the customer tastes the food, it is summative feedback. Diba? Kasi when the chef tastes the food, it is formative feedback. Kasi if masyadong maalat pa siya or masyadong maasim, pwede pa niyang ma-adjust. There will still be another chance to recover what needs to be improved. But when the customer tastes the food, it is summative feedback. Kasi kung if nagbibenta tayo sa meron tayong karinderya, summative feedback na yun kasi no chance na if in case na bumili yung customer tapos natikman niya yung ang pinakbet mo ay masyadong maalat, siguro di na yun babalik. So, napaka-critical din pala ng summative feedback. But the formative feedback is also has weight for itself. There's no such thing as mas importante yung formative feedback, or there is no such thing as mas importante yung summative feedback. It's just their nature. Formative feedback have several chances. Summative feedback is more like a one-shot deal. So, of course, we are instructors. We are all empowered. We have this academic freedom how to when to use formative feedback and when to use summative feedback. Okay, so we all have that freedom. So, questions to ponder before closing this part of my my presentation. Questions to ponder before closing the different types of feedback. Okay, as an expert in the subject that I am teaching, have I provided a variety of feedbacks to really assess my students' level of competence? Have you? Have you? Have you? Say, yun kasi yung pressure, di ba? If you were assigned with that by your chairperson about that subject, automatically, sa'yo na ang corona. You are the expert of that subject. So we have to deal with it. And we have to rise up with their expectations. So, a question for ourselves, have I provided a variety of feedbacks to really assess my students' level of competence? Ilan bang, sir, may tanong kami, sir. Variety, pwede bang dalawa lang? Pwede siguro at least 3 to 4. Kasi if 2, sir, parang parang konti lang yung dalawa. So if possible siguro mga 3 to 4 at least. Okay? So those are that's the question to ponder. As an expert, you have to provide a variety of feedbacks to our students. Okay, so tapos na tayo. 50%. Now we move to the modes of delivery for giving feedback. Okay, the modes of delivery for giving feedback. There are 3 modes of delivery po. So, what are these 3? The first part is the evaluation. The next is appreciation. And the third is coaching. So, these are the 3 modes of delivery when giving feedbacks to the students. Are you evaluating? Are you appreciating? or are you coaching? So let's try to differentiate these three. Okay. So evaluation. Okay, evaluation. Evaluation, matatawag siyang evaluation if there is a clear purpose and expectation. It uses a standard instrument known for us as rubric, where the student's performance is compared with and assessed. It involves a rating or a ranking. So, among those three types of modes of delivery, evaluation is the one that always uses the rubric. It always uses an instrument. It's more like um, assessing the students what was in the rubric. Kaya parang suppress muna the emotional parts, just see what is in the paper, what is in the rubric. Like, okay, you need improvement for your grammar, so that's 2. And you need your formatting, it's okay, so I'll just give you 4. Kita naman sa rubrics, di ba? Na ito. So you have to discuss that. You assess the students, you evaluate it with the rubrics in hand. So there is a black and white thing about this. There's a document involved. So that's evaluation. Next is these standards can be used by the student and the instructor as an explicit guide to monitor students' improvement and performance. So with this, we need to monitor them, and this is an explicit guide to them. Siguro naman po, kung magbibigay tayo ng guide, hindi naman po siguro doon sa last part, di ba? Okay, gawa kayo ng project, tapos yung rubrics, bibigay nyo lang 3 days before sa submission ng students. It's a no-no po. It's kind of tragedy of the common. But, di ba? So, that's how important rubrics is. It should be given beforehand sa students. Like for example, di ba, yung kontrata natin with the students, the thing called the syllabus, di ba? Sometimes pinapipirma pa natin yung students doon. Ito these are my expectations, and these are attached are the rubrics for all the activities. So, when they look at the rubrics, it will serve as a guide for them na, ito pala yung expectation ni ma'am if I have an oral presentation, if we have a PowerPoint presentation, ito pala yung mga rubrics. So at least, there is a guide. You can always justify how you've assessed the students as long as the students knew the rubrics beforehand and you deal with it to them during the assessment part. Okay, so that is for the evaluation. Next, let's proceed to the appreciation. Okay. So, matatawag siya na appreciation if when the teacher wants to approve or thank the student, okay, for his or her contribution and performance. It furthers build trust and confidence in the relationship as a teacher and student, encourages and motivates students to continue with their progress and growth. So, it's more like on the lighter side. So, typically, walang involved na rubrics. It's more like tapping the students in the back. Oh, nice job. I like the part na your prototype is very nice, especially in the aesthetics part. And hello, let's say the name ng estudyante is Anna. Anna, I really appreciate you as leading your team because I can see the accomplishment of the group is very nice. So I appreciate you as a leader. You've really done your job. So with that, it's just kind words, very good words that the student needs to further improve and motivate himself or herself to learn. Okay, so it's more the softer side. And I think we instructors, di ba, ang ganda ring pakinggan if in case na yung chairman natin i-treat tayo, very nice. Level 4 na tayo sa accreditation. Congrats, very good for leading the committee. Very nice. Thank you for giving a good trip to our visitor because the visitor said that our laboratories are very nice and our approach in teaching our students are very nice. So good. I'm so glad that you are under my team. So it's more an appreciation. It's the sweet talk and the motivations. Okay, so we need that for students. But there's that whenever we give appreciation to the students, we have to make sure that it is authentic. Authentic po when you tell the students like, thank you, of course, you have to tell the students, thank you dahil ginawa mo to. Hindi pwedeng sabihin mo lang na thank you. It's very ambiguous po. And it needs to be authentic because if it's authentic, genuinely given to the students, it gives them, it triggers their values, like, and they became more effective and personal. Ang nakakatakot po kasi, like for example, you're the teacher and you're the leader. If most of the time you're just giving appreciation to the students, maybe along the way, the student will no longer appreciate it themselves. Kasi bakit palagi na lang nag-appreciate si leader namin? Bakit palagi na lang nag-appreciate si teacher? To the point na para sa kanila, it's just your routine. Maybe on your part, you want them to boost their morale, to boost their enthusiasm. But if you do it always frequently, or always, the student may find it na it's no longer authentic. It's just routinary. So maybe if you do appreciation, don't do it always. Do it in the perfect time, perfect moment for the students to, especially if nakikita natin yung mga students siguro na parang gusto nang umiyak, gusto nang give up, maybe it's the time for us to appreciate the students. Okay? They need us. They need us for that. Okay? So, for coaching, so we have discussed what is evaluation, and we have discussed what is appreciation. Now we proceed with coaching. Coaching have both elements of evaluation and appreciation. So coaching feedback often involves regular and annual review sessions. Its primary purpose is to further inspire the students and lead them toward continued growth and improvement. So if it's already a mix of evaluation and appreciation to the students, what you are doing is actually coaching already. But napaka-challenging din po pala ng coaching. Hindi ibig sabihin na you just mix it, what you're doing is coaching. Coaching involves regular and annual review for sessions. There should be periodic meeting between you and the students or the group of students. Okay po ha? So with that, there are schedules involved. There is a focus for them to grow. Therefore, the benefits include improves students' performance. Now, mas nagiging committed yung students. Promotes student commitment and professionalism. Like for example, sabihin mo na, okay ha, guys, in Friday hanggang 3 p.m. lang ako. So maybe 3:30 to 5:30 we can discuss about this, about the project you want me to guide you. So please be on time because I will also have several errands to attend to after that. So with that, magiging prompt yung students sa inyong mga meeting, mas naging professional siya. Kasi 'di ba, you guide them. Since it's a mix of appreciation and evaluation, you also bring them rubrics. Like, okay, kailangan i-develop mo to, ito. And can you work on this part? I really like this part to kasi ginagawa mo to. So that's what you call coaching. So it's a tough skill to develop considering that you have to blend in the evaluation part and the appreciation part. Okay? So before finishing this modes of delivery for giving feedback, I have some questions to ponder again for all of you. And that is, question na naman, sir? No, you can always answer it with yourself or in the comment section. Okay, so these are the questions. How frequent do I evaluate my students? How frequent do I appreciate my students? And how frequent do I coach my students? So at least, generally, we knew that, okay, I'm giving feedback to my students. But with this, at least we have already differentiated whether you are evaluating, whether you are appreciating, or whether you are actually coaching the students. So how frequent do you do it? The evaluation, the appreciation, and the coaching. Okay, so that's the progress of the presentation. We have finished discussing the feedback and its importance, the different types of feedback, the modes of delivery for giving feedback. Now we go to the last part, the thing called helpful tips in providing good feedback. Okay, so okay, this is the new normal. We are now in what you call flexible learning, developing the learning management system needs the adaptation and use of helpful technologies. So I guess it's time for us to adapt, to improve for this thing called flexible learning. Okay, I just a gentle reminder kasi yung iba kasi I have some, so I have friends also. Sometimes they said, oh, flexible learning. Di ba flexible learning is online learning? No, flexible learning is not online learning. Online learning is just a part of flexible learning. We have this so-called synchronous and asynchronous, di ba? So they can learn online, real time with you, and sometimes they can also download modules you have uploaded in your group, and they can learn it on their own time that they want to learn. So that's asynchronous. There are offline learning types, and there are also online learning types. So if possible po, wag po nating i-equate yung flexible learning na always online learning. Okay po ha? And with that, we need to improve since it's already called distance learning because of this pandemic. We have to adjust. We need to be creative and how to still continue. Okay, COVID-19 ka lang, teachers kami. We can do this. So yun. So these are several platforms we can use for our students like Canvas. Khan Academy is good if you can provide links for your students for this. Khan Academy for discussing some theories. Zoom, the Cisco WebEx for online meet up with the students. Okay, Schoology, Edmodo for para siyang kind of Facebook na platform but in an educational level na type. Okay, but of course, I'm not saying that Facebook should be removed from the teacher. Kasi technically, almost all students, maybe almost all students have Facebook accounts. So even though kind of I'm not saying that you're not going to use Facebook, but maybe we can use for a start Facebook group and then eventually go to the what is this more formal platforms. Kasi di ba alam po naman po natin na yung Facebook was designed for social interactions, hindi yung technically educational interactions. Even from social, meron lang iba talaga na ginamit din po take advantage po to for business, for education. Okay, so yun po. Google Drive is good for when students will work together. They can edit documents for themselves. And also YouTube. Okay, YouTube will always be there for some mga how-to na videos or some videos very helpful for the students. Also the Messenger. Also the TipCam. You record what is in your screen, and then for short videos, the students can see how to understand this document or how to understand better using some concepts, using some skills. You can always use TipCam with that. And also this Kahoot. Kahoot, di ba, yung parang if my smartphones lahat yung mga estudyante, you can always have like a quiz bee or a quiz ball for them, and then automatically the output is being posted in the screen. Oh, sino yung pinakamabilis? Sino yung nakakuha? Sino na lang yung remaining na nakakasagot ng tama? So it actually involves interaction for the students. But I'm not saying itong nasa picture lang yung pwedeng gamitin natin. There are also several platforms we can use for them. Okay? So, some feedback techniques for flexible learning. So, there are only two ways for that. We can either write or we can speak. Okay? So, first, the write. What are some methods or approaches we can use in giving feedback to students online or in this flexible learning using the write? Okay. Create a discussion forum where students can share their ideas and points of views. So whatever the topic is, you can always comment, clarify, guide the discussion, or provide enlightenment about these student thoughts. So with this discussion forum, they can always exercise what you call the peer feedbacking and giving their own points of views. As an instructor, you can always comment to be also even though you're the instructor, you will also involve with their circle in a professional way, of course. Like you have to facilitate what Mr. Reyes is saying this. Oh, Miss Santos, can you say about this? Oh, I really like the talk what when you said that pollution needs to be performed with mitigation practices. Can you discuss this further so that your classmates can also be enlightened with your idea? Because I think they're very enthusiastic with what you are sharing. So that's the writing. You can write. You can always write for the students. Next is, maybe you will let the students submit some short videos for them for as deliverables, or maybe they have blogs, they upload it to video. You can always provide your feedback. You can always write on the comment sections of the videos uploaded or submitted by your students. Or maybe you can also use this canvas, like you can provide comment while playing the videos submitted by your students. Just make sure your comments are okay. Your comments can be formal or informal. What do you mean by informal? Maybe you, even though there haven't been the scheduled time to be assessed these submitted documents, maybe along the way you gave preemptive comments for the students to make the output better. Okay, so just make sure they are constructive in nature. Yeah. So as what they say, very critical yung pagbibigay ng feedback natin sa students because it can either make or break their enthusiasm for learning. So let us always empathize with the students. Empathize. You don't know their story. Maybe you just need to empathize and give more tolerance to understand them with their outputs. Let us not always equate the students with their outputs because we don't know their story. Okay? Next is here, student, like Google Drive and then email. So students can work together hand in hand on a given platform where they can edit documents and feedback with each other towards the completion of the task. So you can always let them use the Google Drive. Tapos meron man naman siguro mga ibang platform aside from Google Drive where students can work together. And of course, you can always message a student or a group of students by emails or other media about their performances. Okay, so you can always email them. So that's for the right. Also, if you are familiar with the Microsoft Word's review feature, if the students will submit you some documents. Okay, I borrowed this picture from our beloved director kasi very siya mamampi sa mga about Microsoft review, especially sa master students niya, sa mga PhD students niya. Whenever your student submits documents, sabi ni Doc, you can always use you can simply use the Microsoft Word's review feature to track changes and provide written comments to the documents submitted by your students. Okay, so lahat ng po siguro tayo may mga Microsoft Word, so I think it's a very good avenue for that. Okay. Okay, now we proceed with speaking. Speak. So, of course, you can always Zoom or use Cisco Webex or any online platforms where forum or fora can be done. So, host or join online meetings with your class. These sessions make the students feel a sense of belongingness. Yeah, again, okay, so whenever you gave feedback to students, so there are times that you feedback to him or to her as an individual and also to give feedback to them as a whole. Because as humane as we are, we need somebody to learn together. Okay, so these sessions make the students feel a sense of belongingness and as a part of a community of learners. Okay, so of course there are several online meeting media or platforms that are free to use. So ano ba yung mga free? Meron ba kayong ibang alam na mga free? Pwedeng pa-share po. Kasi di ba, even though these are free, there will always have limitations. To the point na we have to pay some. So, the free, the better. Okay? Okay, next. Provide individual virtual consultation or a one-on-one online meeting with each of your students. So, if possible, if you can find way, you have the fora with them on Facebook Live, Cisco Webex or Zoom. The student would also appreciate it. Okay, study shows, okay, research shows that When done in an authentic way, studies show that students appreciate it better if the instructor will give the feedback on a one-on-one manner. So, yung wala pa yung pandemic, di ba, yung approach natin dito is we have this consultation time. We gave our consultation schedule for our students, like you are available like Wednesday or Friday, 4 to 6, you are available with that. And students will come to you to have a consultation for a one-on-one. And now, walang face-to-face, di ba, if possible. So, we need to do it online. Again, it may take effort, but the students appreciate it better if we do that for them individually. If we do that for them individually. Yun yung sabi ni Reynolds, ha? Okay, so, ngayon, how to talk to the students. These are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are 5 introductory statements that we can start when you have a one-on-one session with the students, assessing his or her performance. These are suggested introductory statements said by Croswell. You can start with, I noticed that. Okay? I noticed that. I noticed that you put some figures in that chapter. Can you tell me something about it? So, napaka-powerful daw po pala ng word na notice. Kasi, when the students daw hear that, they tend to discuss it better with the teacher. Like, na-notice mo pala yan, ma'am? Ito po kasi talaga yung idea ko niyan eh. Na ganun. So, it further gives the students the chance to explain better or explain deeper what was being assessed by us, instructor. Next is, I think you did a great job when you, yun. So, ito appreciation to. I think you did a great job when you. So, when you, dapat, as being stated earlier, when you appreciate, you need to specify. You need to be specific what was good being done by the students. Also is, something I really appreciate about you is, again, specific. And then the word, something I really appreciate about you is, like you really submit your documents on time, like kahit Friday pa yung submission, Thursday, nag-submit ka na. It's very good, It's very professional for you. Like that. The students will really like it. Then, I can see you're having a positive impact in. Okay, so it's more like a team-based appreciation. Like, for example, the student is really doing his or her part in his team for the roles being assigned to him or her. So we can use that statement. Then, to further challenge the students to improve, you can always say the statement, I would love to see you do more of, like that. So but I'm not saying these are just the 5 statements. We can always also have our own styles of approaching the students to boost her or his morale and to challenge him or her to do better and to learn better, to be more professional along the way. Okay po? So that's for the speak. So always use the sandwich approach when giving feedbacks. Okay? So sandwich, di ba, may dalawang tinapay tapos may palaman. So ito daw yung approach. First, say something good, compliment. Then, yung palaman is negative feedback. Negative feedback po it doesn't mean negative feedback parang pinapatay mo na yung motivation ng students. Negative feedback usually involves the use of rubrics. Yeah? It needs details like what needs to be improved. Okay? Last but not the least is the encourage. Okay? Encourage usually is to further improve what needs to be improved and keep on doing what is being good. Okay? Sometimes if i-analyze natin, kasi di ba we have these 3 modes of delivery for giving approach to students, the evaluation, the appreciation, and the coaching. So for me, personally, whenever I give the sandwich approach, the first tinapay, itong first compliment, I appreciate first the student. I do the appreciation here. In the coaching, I do the evaluation because it needs rubrics. And the last tinapay is the encouragement. I do the coaching. So for me, just for me, I appreciate, I evaluate, and then I coach like that. Because napaka-critical po kasi yung last na tinapay kasi whenever we give feedback to students, after the session, we have to make sure that the student will still feel empowered, will still feel motivated after the session we've done with them during the feedback. Kasi according to studies, according to research, sometimes, or no, most students usually find the feedbacking session of the instructor negative. Why? Because the effect for them is they try to avoid it because they always, according to research, they see that the instructor can only see what have been done wrong. The motivational part of making them feel better after that, only few instructors only do that. So it's a challenge for us. Now, how to change the paradigm or the paradigm shift for the students? Like, let them feel that feedback is part of learning, and it's never a negative experience when you have feedback session with your instructor. So that's a challenge for us. So maybe you can appreciate, you can evaluate, and then you coach. You motivate them more. So that if in case nalalabas na sila sa room afterwards ng consultation, they can still be more enthusiastic to learn amidst yung sinasabi nilang negative daw na feedback. Okay? So it's a challenge for us how to do that. So 12 tips for instructors giving feedback using technology. Okay, we're going to use technology. Ito po. First, okay, there are 12 tips. These are several tips we can use. First, start with tools your institution already has. Okay, so I guess every institution now are developing or have developed already this LMS, the Learning Management System. I don't know what platform you've been using, but the easiest way to deal with this online feedbacking, this flexible learning feedbacking to the students, is start with the tools your institution already has. Kasi for uniformity, we really have to use the tools what our campus are telling us to use, if possible. But I'm not saying that yun lang yung gagamitin natin. But it's a very good start. It's a very good start that we use what are integrated into our campus. Okay? Next. Okay, so after using the tools, make sure your choices are accessible for everyone. So accessibility is always a concern for students. So maybe for you, maybe for you it is comfortable because you have an internet access, you have a strong internet access, but maybe when you use this platform for your students, maybe only 30% can only use it. So accessibility will always be a concern with this flexible learning. So try to make sure that you strategize the platform you're using, that it can cater total accessibility by your students. Okay, so that's it, accessibility. Next, try the digital feedback tools of a system with which you are already comfortable. Okay, so as presented earlier, di ba, maraming mga pwede natin gamitin. Pero let us make sure po na wag yung parang ito, gagamitin ko to. But make sure that we all know how we also learn as a person, no? You know, so you can ask for help, and there's always this thing called learning curve. Okay, so try to choose saan ka komportable or saan yung what platforms for you are easier for you to learn. Okay, so that don't just bombard yourself with many tools, because it may require steeper learning curve for you. So start with those who are already in your school, and those also tools that you are comfortable with. Okay, it's a good start. That's for number 3. Next is have a plan. Okay, all platforms have limitations, so make sure you are, if example, it is being used by the school, then it's accessible to your students. You're okay with it, you're comfortable with it, but always have a plan, because there may be some free features with these tools, but we cannot remove the fact that it has limitations. So have a plan how to use them. Okay. Next is mix it up. So one size does not fit all. So, hindi pwedeng, oh, ito ha, gagamitin ko lang ha, sa class ko ha, I'm doing flexible learning. Yung gagamitin ko lang talaga is Google Classroom lang talaga ha. Ito, huwag naman yung ganun. Oh, pwede, ito ha, gagamitin ko lang talaga, Moodle lang talaga ha. Yung gagamitin ko lang talaga, yung Messenger lang. Hindi. If possible, try to mix it up. Okay? So, try to mix it up because we have a variety of students. Maybe for you, you are comfortable with your platform, but maybe your student. So, give them options, provide variety. Give them options, provide variety. Okay? So, avoid making long videos. So, for students, we have to give also videos for them. Kasi for this flexible learning, it doesn't mean that, okay, we have this learning management system, upload lang namin lahat yung mga learning materials, bahala ng students doon. Di pwede. If possible lang po, on a weekly basis, you upload a short video for the students, or you have an online connection with them. Let us show them your face po, di ba? Kasi kasi hindi naman po pwede na okay, ito si, like for example, yung pangalan ako si Engineer Stampa. Si Engineer Stampa nag-upload ng learning modules tapos puro na lang instruction ni sir. Wala man lang personal touch. No, according to psychology also and according to research, students appreciate it better if they see the face of their teacher talking to them, even though you make it online manner or offline manner, make sure they hear your voice. It's more like I can see your voice. That's so importante po. Pero avoid making long videos kasi if in case yung bandwidth, yung file size, baka yung estudyante introduction mo lang yung yung maririnig niya. Tapos, if sa sobrang long ng video, baka magiging pixelated na yung mga mukha natin. So, let's try to avoid that. Okay? Short but crisp videos, always showing the students that I care for you. I'm just here for you. Okay? So, yun. So, let's not try just to make it long. Okay. Video and audio feedback doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, hearing your actual voice and tone is one element of audio and video feedback that appeals to students. It does not mean that you don't practice at all. Just practice what you are going to say before you hit the record button. Di ba? So, parang di ba nag-TikTok din naman pala tayo, di ba? So, why not practice tayo sa face natin? Okay. Hello guys. How are you? And I'm just here. That. Okay, so you can always do it on a weekly basis for them. And there's always room for practice. Ano po, di ba? There's always a room for practice. Next, there is such a thing as too much information. So in creating videos, it's easy to overlook cognitive overload. So do not present too much information too fast. Okay? Make sure you only talk about whatever it is you are pointing to on the video. Yeah. So, pwedeng direct to the point lang po tayo, no, para mas crisp, mas concise for the students. Kasi baka daming instructions, one video pero 10 instructions for the students, nako, cognitive overload yan ng mga students. So, we can only learn as we can. Okay. Number 9. Okay, ito. Para to sa mga staff natin sa mga schools and also mga fellow teachers. Don't be afraid to ask for help. So most digital tools have online support, fora, and most colleges and universities have dedicated staff members to help you learn. So we can always ask for guidance from our ICT office, from our IT staffs, and not only them. For those also yung fellow teachers natin na who have been using this technology platform that you plan to use. So, with all humility, you can always ask for help. Uy, alam ko, gumagamit ka pala ng Google Classroom. Pwede mo ba akong turuan? Yun. It just needs a talk for us. Okay, so don't be afraid to ask for help. Okay, this can be done. Okay, ask your students for number 10. This can be done via survey or a poll. So by asking for their views, you're helping put power in their hands over their own learning. And in the process, you learn which feedback methods will work best for them. So I think this is connected with the term use a variety. Mix it up. Eventually, your students will say, sir, mas gusto namin itong ganito, sir. Parang mas komportable kami dito, sir. Mas accessible to para sa amin. So at least you have to keep that information from the students, because also on their part, they also need to be comfortable with it, and these platforms should also be accessible for them, or they really like the platform for themselves. As you, as a class, as a teacher, with the students, you can always customize. You can always customize your style with learning with the students. Not just tell them, eto lahat yung gamitin natin ha, wala akong pake sa feedback nyo. Huwag po yun. Along the way, we will know with the feedback methods what works best for them. Okay. Expect a few roadblocks. Ito, technically, it's the limitations for some platforms. Okay, so there will be these things called roadblocks, especially if you have this platform, but not all the students have strong access to internet, or the platform you're using is just a free version. It only have several features. Okay, so expect it. Reality check. There will always be limitations. Okay, there will always be limitations. So it's just on our part how to innovate this approach, how to be creative, how to be resourceful for our students. So limitations in reality will always be there. But dapat hindi tayo patalo ng mga limitations ha. Let us continue for the students. Laban lang, laban lang. Last but not the least, eto. Don't assume technology will solve every problem. Context is critical when it comes to using technology. If your course evaluations rate your feedback as lousy, delivering it via shiny, new digital tool is unlikely to fix the root of the problem. Maybe you need to reconsider the substance of your feedback. So it's not saying that, okay, I'm using this, I'm using Schoology, I'm using Kahoot, I'm using Khan Academy. It doesn't mean that my feedback is already good. No. Don't assume totally that thing. Try also to revisit how you gave your feedback to the students and the substance of your feedback. So it's not technology that will solve the problem. It's using technology, using hand in hand with a genuine care for the students to improve. Okay, that's the best tips. Okay, so those are the 12 tips when using technology as feedback tools for the students. So growth. Okay, let me share you something about growth. Growth is in our Center for Innovative Teaching for Learning in University of Science and Technology of Southern Philippines. We have been discussing how to give feedbacks to students, and sometimes we use, okay, why not we create a word to guide us to how to give good feedback to the students. Then our director, Dr. Amphi Dinagsaw, coined this word, growth. Lloyd, why not use the word growth? Because we always value the growth of our students. Oh nga, ma'am, no? Growth. So, okay, growth. We always value the growth here in giving feedbacks to our students. So, growth is actually an acronym. It's a guide for us to give feedbacks to let the students grow. To give feedbacks to let the students grow. So, G, what does G stands for? G stands for genuine and gradual. Genuine and gradual. So what do you mean by genuine? Be genuine with how you give feedbacks to your students. Tell the students what he or she really needs to know in an objective and sincere manner. Most students are sensitive enough to know whether we really care for them or not, just by observing how you gave them feedback. So yung approach natin sa kanila, let's do our best to make it genuine from our heart. Make it genuine. Next, gradual. So if it is gradual, there is a monitoring, there is improvisation along the way. So it can only be done if you give feedbacks gradually. This means that from time to time, you allocate several sessions for the process. Set clear expectations. You want them to develop and master a specific skill, so it's only appropriate to guide them and monitor their progress. Make it gradual. Gradual. Let them grow. Let them see whether they are improving. Guide them towards being more competent in a skill or in an outcome. Okay. So that's for G. Next is R. R stands for relevance and the use of reference and rubrics. So relevance is just going back again to my first part of my presentation, the constructive alignment. So you have an outcome, you design activities to let the students be triggered and develop these outcomes. You make sure also that your assessment is aligned with these outcomes. Okay? So it's more about constructive alignment. Don't use feedbacking methods that are irrelevant to the magic triangle. Outcomes, activities, and then assessment. Then feedback that to the students. So make sure the triangle will always be there. Always make sure that there is constructive alignment. Okay? Next, the reference and rubrics. Rubrics greatly provide concrete details and support to characterize an assessment in a progressive level. So, students can grade themselves beforehand using these rubrics. So, parang yung sa evaluation, no? So, you can always give rubrics beforehand to the students and they can grade themselves before they let themselves be graded by you. Their performance, their deliverables. So, rubrics will always be the black and white document for this. This is yung they can compile it to their portfolio, and these are concrete details and support to really characterize how competent the student is about a certain skill or an outcome. Okay, but of course we will always be there to guide them. Next, the O. What does O mean? O means opens up and optimistic. Okay, opens up. So what do you mean by opens up? So whenever you give feedback, it's very nice if the student then eventually opens up to you about his or herself, like how he see. You can try to ask the student about her point of views, about the way you teach, about the subject. So it's a very nice that when the student opens up, what is being created is mutual feedback, mutual feedback for the students. It's not just a one-way process like of you giving the feedback to them. Why not empower also the students that they to you? So at least you let the students learn from you, but you also learn from the students. But it's not very easy. It takes a deal of personality, a genuine approach, before a student will give his or her trust on you. Wag natin i-assume na automatically the students will trust us. It needs effort also for our part for them to open up to us. At least our point of view and also their point of view. Okay. Next, optimistic. Inculcate to the students that feedbacks are very helpful, okay, and necessary. It is one explicit process for them to know whether they are good in some skills or they need improvement about them. Nevertheless, these are all done for them to appreciate failure and value the concept of not giving up. Being positive. Being positive is the key. So, as a challenge nga po, di ba, earlier I said that based on research, students find it a negative experience to have feedback sessions with the instructors. Kasi most of the time, they feel sometimes, okay, if I may use the word, demoralized or their enthusiasm gets down because from the feedback process, what they just pictured it out is an instructor giving them the negative points, only few positive points. So for us, it's also a challenge for our part that as instructors, we need to inculcate to the students that feedbacking is part of learning. Failure is part of learning. It's very dangerous for a student not to experience failure during their education years because for them, like for us in engineering, failure is just part of in the professional world. It doesn't mean that When you work, there's no such thing as failure. You will always deal with failure. So that's how also how I told my students, like, okay, you may fail in this. At least you know how it feels to fail. But you don't learn anything if you haven't failed for something. Okay? So failure is part of learning. So it's all, let us pressure also ourselves, instructors, to make the feedback session optimistic for the students. Like even though the students have a low grade, after the session, the student will still feel empowered that, okay, I can still do this. I can still be motivated to pass this subject. I can still be motivated to learn something from it because of my instructor is giving me a very good feedback. I'm still very optimistic with it. So that's a challenge for us. That's a challenge for us. Okay. Next is W. W stands for whisper, write or written, and whisper. Okay, so we start with the write and written. So a sincere oral feedback is good. It's nice when you talk to the students, but studies also show that a written feedback provides better reinforcement. A written feedback provides better reinforcement. Like you really have to document the session. You really have to use the rubrics. You really have to check right, wrong, like that. Considering that the students can read it anytime for perusal, portfolio, or personal reflection. So the student can always respond to these documents for verification and improvement. Kasi if maganda yung oral, parang laid back, tapos you just talk. But if you will not document it, document the findings, the assessments, then maybe later the student, kasi di ba, one student have different subjects also. You're not just the subject of the student. So it's very nice to also write what was being assessed for reflection. Okay? So journal writing is a very good way for students to assess their learning and debrief themselves from the learning modules and activities. So it's very good also for students to let them debrief themselves, let them do some personal journal, and let them have self-reflection. So that's how powerful if it's right or written. Next is whisper. So an optimistic one-on-one. Whisper is just the keyword for having one-on-one sessions with the students. Like, wag mong, if possible, if may concern ka na student, wag kang magbigay ng feedback in front of his or her classmates. Because you don't know that the student maybe is a sensitive student. Diba? So, again, this W whisper reinforces the thought of a one-on-one session with students for consultation, for feedback, really typically boosts the morale because it shows that you are concerned to him or her on a personal level. They appreciate it better. Okay, for T. T stands for timeliness and tolerance. Yeah, timeliness and tolerance. First, timeliness. Provide timely feedback or feedback that is given while it matters to the student and can be used for improving future performance. So studies also show, like for example, yung schedule mo sa students is Monday, Wednesday. So ang sabi nila, if you conducted a test on Monday, dapat in the next meeting, the student can see the results for it, the feedback. Accordingly, the time frame for a good feedback is after the activity, within 24 to 48 hours, the student should already have the feedback of what about their performance on a certain activity, on a certain exam. That is the most appropriate period for them na kailangan mabigyan ng feedback. Because afterwards, if you will give after 2 weeks pa ang feedback, for them to chew down the experience, to chew down the reflection of their performance is no longer that strong. It's already very weak. So timeliness is very important. Next is tolerance. Okay, let us all remember that when a student has to wait too long, I'm sorry, timeliness, it impacts their motivation. I'm still talking about timeliness, I'm sorry. It impacts their motivation levels and leaves them feeling unsure. So if masyadong matagal yung pag-give ng feedback natin, yung motivation daw ng mga estudyante, sabi ni Delin, is nag-drop down. Okay? So, and also, the students also find it that if you automatically give them feedback with what has being done, the activity, the test, for them, it's a sign of your commitment for them as a teacher. Okay? And also, di ba, if you are using always timeliness, it always makes the students to be actionable with your feedback. Kasi si ma'am is palaging gumagamit talaga ng time frame. So what was your plan? Oh, you have a plan? So when will that be? Like that. So time is of the essence. Time is a sign of professionalism for them. So for that, they make it actionable with your feedback. Okay, so tolerance. Ito po. Different students have different learning and pacing. Different styles of learning. So there are those who are average, fast learners, and slow learners. So there are those who are visual learners. Mas gusto nila kapag may mga figures. Yung iba din is meron auditory learners. Kahit walang figures, as long as para sa kanila, okay lang yung music or yung tono ng voice ng teacher, pwede na yun sa kanila. Kahit walang masyadong visuals. Meron din naman yung yung parang kailangang nakagalaw palagi. Mas gusto niya yung mga active learning sa classroom. We also have that kinesthetics. We also have solitary learners. We also have group learner. Yung mas gusto niyang, merong mas gustong siya lang mag-isa na mag-learn. Meron ding gusto palagi yung group. So, knowing that different students have different styles of learning, different personalities, different family backgrounds, different stories, I think it's also imperative for us to extend patience for our students. But again, without compromising standards po ha. Like for example, ipapasubmit mo ngayong week, tapos ma'am, pwede bang masubmit pa ng ng next 2 weeks? Parang na yun na. Parang sobra na yun na. Parang na-compromise na yung rubric tsaka yung standard natin. So, maybe provide tolerance but also without compromising standards. So, how to do that? We can always have different approach about it without compromising our principles as a teacher. Okay? So that's for T. Last but not the least is H. H stands for holistic and humane. So what's holistic and humane? Start with holistic. Okay? So it's stated here, amidst explicitly evaluating student on specific competencies, never forget to emphasize to him or her that it's just part of several other skill sets that are interconnected. Several other skill sets that are interconnected. So, ibig sabihin, even though, like for example, you want the students to develop the mastery of very good oral presentation, what do you call that? The fluidity of what do you call fluidity of speaking. What if yung estudyante talaga is kind of parang may pagka-emo, parang may stage fright, pero alam mo matalino siya. So, dapat, as a holistic point of view, you tell the students like, even though you fail in this part, but it doesn't mean that you are totally a dumb person. There are other several skill sets you can work on, and with this skill set, you can always improve this part. These skill sets are interconnected. Okay? So, I'm not expecting you to be just a good speaker. I'm also expecting you to be a good listener, a good team player, and a reflective person. So it's all about context-based approach. Okay? So we always tell the students what's important is the context and the totality of everything. Okay? So that's the holistic approach. We always tell the students about that when giving feedbacks. Last but not the least is humane. Okay, let's not forget we are mga tao po tayo lahat so we need interaction. Okay, so follow up the feedback and be encouraging. Use feedback to promote self-directed learning to the students. Okay, so ganyan po ka-powerful yung feedback. If tama lang yung pagbigay natin ng feedback sa mga students, eventually the students will learn without us. Just in an encouraging word from us, just a clear instruction from us, a timely instruction, cohesive with other skills, the students may start self-directed learning. And of course, as human as we are, you need to encourage peer feedback. Hindi pwedeng ikaw lang yung palaging nag-feedback sa mga students. So we can only feel our being human if we are also interconnected with other human. So human by nature is social. So we need interaction, we need peer reviews, we need peer feedback, and we always need to be encouraged. Again, when we give feedback to our students, try to make sure that you wrap it up. Try to make sure that you wrap it up, that the students still feel motivated, still feel positive, still feel enthusiastic about learning. Yun po. Okay? So that's for growth. Growth. So again, as a recap, growth is G, genuine, gradual. R, relevant, reference. O, opens up, optimistic. W, written, whisper. T, timeliness, tolerance. H is holistic and humane. So that's for the growth. Okay, so some question to ponder before wrapping up this final part for the helpful tips in providing good feedback. I have another question for all of you. In my feedbacks to my students, do all of them know that I really care for their growth and improvement? How sure am I? How sure am I? What are the things I need to improve? Okay, again, in my feedbacks to my students, do all of them know that I really care for their growth and improvement? Can they feel it from me? Masyado ba akong stricto? Masyado ba akong complacent? Masyado ba akong affectionate for them? How sure am I? What are the things I need to improve? So, yun po yung sa helpful tips in providing good feedback to the students. So, this is the progress of the presentation. Tapos na po tayo sa feedback and its importance. Different types of feedback. Modes of delivery for giving feedback. And helpful tips in providing good feedback. Okay, so, kompleto na tayo. So, of course, you have to sum it up. I'm just summing it up for you to simplify things. So, feedback and its importance. Make sure that you are always performing the magic triangle, constructive alignment. And for the different types of feedback, provide students with a variety of feedbacks. Alignment and variety. For the modes of delivery for giving feedback, evaluate, appreciate, coach. Evaluate, appreciate, and coach. Last but not the least, make sure that your feedback motivates them and there is a sense of direction because among everything all, it is growth-oriented. Okay? So, this will be the second to the last slide. As instructors feedback, let's periodically give them feedback. Show them that you care about their performances. Build rapport and trust with them. Let them feel that we are always there for them as their learning grows and as they are gradually completing the task from our learning modules. Okay? So, thank you po and God bless us all.
Thank you very much, Engineer Tampa, for that. It looks, so let's move on to our next resource person. Has earned her bachelor's degree in computer engineering at Mindanao Polytechnic State College, now USTP. She graduated in her master's degree in computer engineering at Ateneo de Davao University. Since 2012, she's been serving as the chairperson for the Department of Computer Engineering under the College of Information Technology and Computing of USTSP. She was trained at Singapore Polytechnic as a CDIO trainer for teaching and learning framework. Currently, she's one of the Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning's program heads of USTSP. Please help me welcome Engineer Eileen Sheras.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Okay, good morning, everyone. I am Eileen Amora Sheras, and today I will share on how I provide feedback to the students. This is a continuation of Engineers Istampa's discussion. So I will share my slides now. Okay, before I share my practice on providing feedback to my students, do you ask these questions to yourself? Why should I still give feedback if I can directly give grades to my students' work? Or what are the benefits I get for giving feedback to the work of my students? Now, if we want our life as a faculty, regardless you are a professor or a doctor, as easy as a straight line, then yes. Why should I? Why should I care? Bahala na kayo. I can give grades. Okay? But if you want a meaningful life as a faculty, then giving feedback will open considerations to the students' work with thoroughness and care. So this is how I start, and I assume that this is true to all. We will prepare our syllables and our lecture materials before the start of our classes, right? So as you can see here, these are the parts or some parts of the format of the syllabus in our university. There are 9 columns here that we need to fill in. So in this example, I handled software engineering course. It has a 3 units lecture subject without laboratory units. So my students are 5th year computer engineering, meaning they are graduating students. So the outcome of this course is the students will create a software system to solve a real problem in a community. So these 2 columns here, the teaching, learning activities, and assessment tasks or tools are my guidelines on what activities and projects will I give to the students for the semester. So I really need to do the planning. So these are my plans. These were based on the syllabus, on the school calendar that we have, and the school policy. So number 1, what are the projects to be submitted during midterm and final? So I list down all the possible projects related to the subject. So with this, I asked some of my colleagues or my friends, what are the possible projects that I can share it to my students? The number 2, make instructions or guidelines on how to complete the project. Then number 3, I also plan to have these set up schedules for consultation, checking, oral presentation, and these final submissions of their project. And then the 4th one is create rules. Now, with this, I emphasize here the create rules because this is the heart over mind or mind over heart during the process of feedbacking. So when we give or when we create our rules or your rules, we must or you must stick to your rules. Why? Because don't make yourself joke in the class. It is a way for you to establish authority and consistency. So example, one student asked you to change his schedule for checking his project because he did not finish it. So please don't just simply say yes. As a faculty, we need to know why. Huwag masyadong pusong mamon, no? If the student cannot meet the schedule and requirements, then prepare always the consequences of his action or give the merit of his points if really necessary. By doing so, we are helping the students realize their responsibilities. No? Let the students be responsible of their actions. And if you give consequences, be fair enough. Wag yung parang yung mga consequences na hindi magawa ng students. No, if the reasons are serious, maybe we can consider being lenient, of course, or a bit of understanding. Kasi wala namang tao na pusong bato always, di ba? So, this is some of the example on how I prepare the activities for the whole semester. So, I announced this one during the first week or second week of the class. Excuse me. So, with this, the students are aware of the activities and prepares them also. So, in the announcement, I emphasize here that I'll be checking their projects weekly. So, it will keep them busy, no dull moments, no? So, here's a concern. based on as a faculty, no? If we cannot follow the schedule we make because of the circumstances that cannot be avoided, like activities in the school or official travels, then we decide, then you decide to jump to the last schedule, which is the final submission of the project. Please don't do it. Always have a backup plan. Look for other resources. Given that we are in the digital era, so we will maximize the use of digital resources such as internet and social media or learning management systems. Now, notice here in my requirements, students need to submit a working software system. But this course, the software engineering, does not have laboratory units. So in this case, I require all the students to bring their laptops in class. Their project is by group with composed of 2 to 3 members. And I see to it that each group has a laptop. So in this moment, I already give an initial feedback to them by announcing what they have, what are the requirements to pass this course. So this is one of the example also on the follow-up session of our schedule. So before the COVID-19 pandemic, I already used this social media to communicate with my students. So aside from these person-to-person feedback sessions, this is a funny part, yet a bit critical, because some of the students don't want to see or read my announcements because they felt nervous. No, that's what they told me. But in the positive side, it reminded them that they have things to be done. Some students also told me that maraming magkaibigan at maraming magkakaibigan na hindi nagkakaimikan dahil nga sa mga announcement ko. So, am I that devilish person between their relationships? Ganun ba talaga ako kasama? No, I realized that hindi naman siguro. So, I told the students that I want them to focus on their work. Hindi pwede yung pwede na yan attitude. Hindi pwedeng sabihin na parang kami, pero walang kami pala. So, gising, no, students? Because you are handling a project. So, and take note that effective feedback focuses on the future, and it should be goal-oriented. And this is another example on how I communicate with my students. So once I receive their work, as much as possible, I will check and give them my feedback, even if I finish it in 3 or 4 a.m. I don't want to delay my feedback, giving my feedback to them, because I don't want to lose their momentum in doing their projects. Don't let the students wait too long, because you are putting them in the corner where one face is not moving. Parang nag-paralyze sila in that case. So, because as I have observed, I don't know if you agree with me, no? But the pacing of the students in doing their work relies to the pacing of us, of the faculty also, right? If you agree with me. Yun yung na-observe ko kasi eh. Example, no? Yung paulit-ulit na example ni Sir Istampa regarding the timely. No, the student sends his work today, example na, and you give your feedback after 2 weeks, and you are expecting to submit on time. Parang may mali, di ba? Din tayo, mga faculty, we want to have a good project from our students, a presentable project, an innovative project. But we check their project, or we give feedback to their project only once in the whole semester. So what do you expect? If you want to receive a good project, check it or give feedback from time to time, because effective feedback is timely, meaningful, and candid. Okay, another example. This is how I write my feedback. To direct them, I put yellow with red fonts. So when I check their work, I don't usually see the person doing the work, but the process. I don't want to mix my emotions when giving them feedbacks. Because based on my experience also, I took to my students one by one because of feedbacking. So sometimes, no, I feel like I'm in Boy Abunda's shoes. Nakikipag-chismis din minsan na nakakatuwa din naman kung ano yung mga ginagawa ng mga students. Well, anyway, through feedbacking, I then establish good relationships with my students. Because effective feedbacking is about the process, not the person. Okay, recently, because of the pandemic today, no, I asked the students to submit their work through Google Drive. So I create a Google Drive. I share it with them. So there are 32 groups in my class today. No, due to the pandemic, I consider the lapses. There is a changes of schedule of activities like oral presentations or checking their outputs. We have online presentations also. And we did the checking of their systems online. So it's a different scenario than the normal phase, of course, no? But because if they want to ask something before for the normal time, if they want to ask something, they would just go to the faculty office and we would just talk in person. But in this scenario, hindi naman naninibago ang mga students in this scenario, no? Because I already did these online conversations with them before. Somehow, medyo adjusted na sila for the new normal. But I find this a very good strategy to deliver the same quality of instructions in this situation. Okay, now back to the questions. What benefits I can get? I encourage all my students to show their works. Then I also show them my class record. I will actually, it will actually boost their confidence and morale. So this is more than, these certificates is more than their grades. Their experiences are more than their grades. No, I ask them to go out in the classroom, show their works. So I asked them to join this research presentation, oral presentation, their poster making. Though, as I said a while ago, that this software engineering is not a thesis subject. It's a normal subject. It has only 3 units, 3 lecture units. But I put some twist of this course so that we have these relationships or good relationship with the students, and we come up with a good outcome to this subject. And here also, and finally is, here is another benefit I got. So with the students, I give them a copy of which this can add to their resume. You know, their works, I applied their works to the copyright. It's really quite amazing, no? Okay. For I already have this around 10 copyright from the students' work. So for me, it can be added to my NBC, of course, for the poets, no? So all these certificates shows the hard work we did with the students. It's not easy, but we made it. So with that all, thank you very much for listening. Hope that you got something from the samples I have shown, and that will benefit you to earn benefits of giving this feedback. Okay, thank you very much.